All right, this is Mr. Wyrick, and I'm just gonna go through a couple of things for notes to kind of guide you through the quiz that you're gonna take today. So the first thing that I want to talk about, again, parallelograms is gonna take up a good chunk of this. Remember, we got the opposite sides, they're congruent, they're parallel. The opposite angles, the ones that are connected by those diagonals, those are going to be congruent. And the diagonals, of course, if you have one diagonal, it's going to cut it into two congruent triangles. And if you have both diagonals, they are going to bisect each other. The next thing that we are going to talk about would be the special parallelograms. Again, we've got the rectangle, which has all the same parallelogram stuff, except it has four right angles. Okay, all four of the angles are right angles, and then not only are the diagonals going to be bisecting each other, but they are also going to be congruent. So that's the important stuff for rectangles. The next one is going to be the rhombus. If you have a rhombus, it's got all that same parallelogram stuff. The diagonals are going to bisect each other, except now they're going to be perpendicular bisectors of each other for the rhombus. It's still going to cut it into two congruent triangles, but the diagonal is also going to bisect the angles that they connect. And then in the rhombus, very specifically, what we know about the most is all four of the sides are going to be congruent. The last part, of course, is going to be the square. It's a rectangle and a rhombus. All four angles are right angles. We've got the perpendicular bisectors on the diagonals. Everything that it takes to make a rhombus, everything that it takes to make a rectangle, that's what we're going to see on the square. The other thing we need to make sure that we talk about, the trapezoids. That's new information as of a couple days ago when you're taking this quiz. The parallel sides, whether they're left and right or top and bottom, those are the bases. The other things, the other sides of it are the legs. Anywhere that a base connects to a leg, you're going to have a base angle. If the base angles are congruent, that's the base angle theorem. That means we have an isosceles trapezoid, and in an isosceles trapezoid, the diagonals are going to be congruent and the legs are going to be congruent. The other one that we talked about, the other thing we talked about was kites. If you have a kite, you have consecutive sides that are congruent. The diagonals are going to be perpendicular, but only the one that connects the two congruent angles is going to be bisected. The two congruent angles will be formed where the one side meets the different measure side. Okay, so where it's two congruent sides connecting, that angle is not going to be congruent to anything else, but where we have the two non-congruent sides connect, that's where we're going to see those congruent angles across that kite. The last thing that we're going to talk about is we have figures in the coordinate plane. Again, all the properties are what you really need to look at. Just make sure you understand if you are asked to do something about where it is on the coordinate plane, perimeter, area, those kinds of things. Just remember all those different properties and do some counting to make sure that everything's still going to work out. Just a quick pro tip, if I'm supposed to figure out that opposite sides of, say, a parallelogram, a rectangle, something, are supposed to be congruent and it's on an angle, I can just count. If I count up 5 over 4 for one of them and I count up 5 over 4 for the other, those are going to be congruent. I don't have to actually use the distance formula unless it's telling me specifically to find the length of that line. Hopefully that gets you through the quiz today. Good luck.